Plans are useless. Planning is everything. And so for us, both in the military and on the civilian side, we spend a lot of time working on planning. And our perspective, we borrow from the soft community.
Hey, welcome to the Leadership Loading Podcast. I'm Jason McClaren.
And I'm Dr. Sean Siler.
Hey, Dr. Siler. I'll call you Sean going forward, but Dr. Siler, welcome to the show.
Thanks. So happy to be here.
Definitely. So yeah, we're talking today. You're the CEO of Vigilant. Is it Vigilant or Vigilance?
Vigilant. Yes.
Vigilant. Yeah. Sorry, I don't have my notes right here in front of me, but that's how we got connected. But we're going to talk a little bit about that here in a little bit. But let's talk about your background and what led you to join the military.
So I've actually been in the United States Army in some way, shape, or form for the last 33 years. And actually, originally, I had wanted to be in the Navy. I was actually on a Navy ROTC scholarship my first year of college, and they discontinued my program. And so I really didn't have anywhere else to go. Thought I was going to be a naval aviator. This was back in 1990. And, as a result, somebody said, well, you can go be an aviator in the Army, but it's kind of hard to get into. And so I found a way to get in as a simultaneous membership program cadet, combined with the ROTC program at Cal Poly Pomona, where I was studying political science. And so I joined ROTC, joined the Army Reserve, came in as a medic, and immediately went into the SMP program and did that through till about my junior year. And in between junior and senior year, you go to something called advanced camp, where they kind of assess all incoming officers and figure out what you're going to do with your life. And while I was going to that camp, I got involved in a really big car accident and was pretty broken up. And as a result, was not able to do camp, was not able to assess, and ultimately not able to commission as an officer through ROTC. And I can go into how I became a doctor later, but that kind of put me on the path to actually become a doctor. And as a result, I ended up getting a direct appointment about a year and a half later as a medical service corps officer, and subsequently got in medical school as well. And then went to medical school, got into the health profession services scholarship program, and they paid for the last 3 years of medical school, and was commissioned as an active duty captain. I was fortunate enough at that point to assess and be selected for the emergency medicine program in San Antonio, Texas. And that at the time, and still is considered one of the premier emergency medicine programs in the country, not just the military. And so I went, spent a year there as an intern. And then, as was typical in the early 2000s, they were still sending physicians that wanted to go into highly competitive residencies out to the field for 2 years as a general medical officer. So I had an internship, basically 1 year of postgraduate training, but not a whole lot more. And I got sent, fortunately, to 10th Special Forces Group, and I was a battalion surgeon for 2nd Battalion. This was in 2000. Kind of an eventful thing happened during those 2 years called 9/11. And when the war kicked off, we were immediately thrown into the middle of that. I deployed with 10th Group, went over. Our mission was to do a train and equip and stand up a competent military partner with the Republic of Georgia. And I went over as Captain Siler and stood that up. And I must have done pretty well because at the end of it, Colonel then, Charlie Cleveland, nominated me for an award, and I was actually selected as the Doctor of the Year for the U.S. Army for that as Captain Siler. And so had to come back to residency and did that reluctantly because I didn't want to leave the guys while they were in the middle of doing what they did forward. But I did, came back to San Antonio, did the next 3 years, finished my residency in San Antonio, assessed at Fort Bragg. I was invited to assess for a special mission unit there, and was selected and went to Fort Bragg for the next 3 years, working for that special mission unit and at the hospital. I stayed on in the reserve. I actually left active duty in 2008. Stayed in a reserve capacity at that special mission unit and did that till 2011, and then started my reserve career from there. And since then, I've been in the reserve. I've worked at U.S. Army Special Operations Command as the deputy command surgeon. over at Civil Affairs and Psychological Operations Command as the command surgeon as well, and then have commanded 4 times at the detachment, company, battalion, and brigade level within the Army Reserve. And my most recent job, I just left brigade command of the 8th Med Brigade, headquartered out of New York City, running all medical units for New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. And my current position is I am a mission command consultant for the Medical Readiness and Training Command. So that's kind of my career in a really long nutshell.
Definitely, and kind of a roundabout way of getting your commission there, going through all that, and that kind of just shows that there's not always just one path to where you want to go. There's, you know, you can go different ways. You had your ROTC thing lined out, and then that kind of changed your path, and you go from there. I kind of did the same thing. I started my enlistment in San Antonio in the Air Force, and I want to be a security forces at the time is what they were calling them. And due to hearing loss, I wasn't able to. So then I became a firefighter in the Air Force. Did 2 years there at San Antonio, permanent party, and then moved on from there. But yeah, definitely different ways you can get to where you want to go from there.
Definitely. And I learned there's a waiver authority for almost everything. Your job is to kind of find it.
Yeah, I should have tried that with the hearing thing, but I ended up liking being a firefighter better than a cop anyway. So you're still in now?
Yes, sir.
And then and the vigilant stuff, is that on the side, or is that your primary job in your military services reserve?
My military services reserve, and then all of the vigilant stuff. That is my full-time job.
And so what does Vigilant do?
So Vigilant provides basically a variety of services for folks that are kind of traveling or overseas medical support. We really support 5 different things. We do telemedicine support for corporate and for government travelers that are away from their medical home. We provide medical consulting and advisory services for Fortune 500 companies. We do medical logistics and tailored logistics for organizations, including the government. The 4th, we do our direct medical support, and that's actually the largest amount that we do in terms of putting actually boots on the ground in foreign countries, providing medical support for folks. And in this case, we provide all of the contracted medical personnel for U.S. AFRICOM, providing both rucksack surgical teams, working out of backpacks across Africa, as well as all of the rescue specialists. So think pararescuemen and 18 Deltas, all of the contracted support for that for personnel recovery and CASEVAC for all of U.S. AFRICOM's portfolio. And then lastly, we have a foundry division that does all the assessment, selection, training, equipping, preparing, and sustaining of deployed personnel for us and for other companies.
Yeah, it's a wide portfolio there. I think the telemedicine really kicked off during COVID, and I was working in healthcare at the time, and so we had to adopt a lot of that technology and utilize that. And then obviously the staffing is another resource that a lot of agencies and hospitals use during that time, which is picked up. And it sounds like you guys are doing a good job over there overseas.
We are, and really our focus is people that are away from their medical home. So we're not focused on doing primary care or managing diabetes or hypertension. We are fixing the problem that, I'm in the Chapel Hill area. If I travel to Washington, D.C., somebody can probably fix my problem with a CVS down the street or refer me to the ER. If I go to Paris, nobody's going to help me. And that's exactly what we do, is we excel in those areas where it's hard. Your local infrastructure can't help you. And so that's what Vigilant does, is that we step in and we understand how to make that happen with our entire portfolio of about 200 medical providers that work for us. And then we've got within 10-minute access to 140 subspecialties at the Cleveland Clinic.
Yeah, my previous life, I worked in risk management, and so we had I worked for a large university, and of course we had students abroad, and so tracking those students abroad and making sure they had all the resources they need while they were studying abroad was key in that, and Vigilant would have been a good resource for us then.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So let's talk about leadership and how your military career helped you get to where you are today. So you're the CEO there at Vigilant. So what skills from your leadership career, or your military career, helped you get to the CEO position?
So one of the most important things that I kind of pulled out of my military background and is really resonates through is that it's always about people. And it doesn't matter that you're in the military, you're in a unit, whatever your position is in that unit, be it a squad leader, be it a brigade commander, it's about the people that you're interacting with, the ones that work for you, that work with you, or you work for. There's a human interaction. And as soon as you lose sight of that and you start relying on regulations and external factors and not human factors, that's when things become contentious. And I have found in my experience much less effective at doing what it is you're trying to do. I thought that would be totally different when I came to the civilian world and stepped into my role, and I found that actually it's even more so. It is all about the people. And a unique aspect that's probably worth bringing up to listeners for this is that in the military, leadership can be very easy in that I can give you a direct order and you have the legal requirement to do exactly what I say. And that can take a not so strong leader and make them a little stronger. And they may or may not be more effective, but at least people will do what you tell them to do. I cannot do that as a civilian. And I had this fallacy in my mind that military leaders were the best kind of leaders because they had the most dangerous missions and the most complex things, and they were the pinnacle of leadership. And then on my journey to becoming a civilian, executive, and especially going through the executive MBA program at UNC Chapel Hill, I really, really learned that actually civilian leadership is so much harder because you've got to win them with the why. You've got to win their hearts and gain their participation and their full support for them to do it because you can't tell them they got to do it. Or you can pull the card of I'll fire you if you don't do that. Well, you've already lost, but you can also only do that once. And so as a civilian leader, I have actually a harder job than I ever have as a brigade commander because there at least people have to do what I tell them to do. As a CEO, I get them to, or I have to have them want to do what we do. So another aspect probably worth mentioning, and this I didn't think too much about in the military, but reputation is actually really, really important, and especially as you get higher within both the military and definitely within the civilian community, um, you create a brand. And I never thought of Sean Siler or Colonel Siler as a brand, but it definitely is. And it's the sum total of every interaction that you have had over your life. And so if you were a jerk early on, people remember that. They remember how they felt working for you, whether you were right or wrong. And, that sum total, 10 years later, 15 years later, those people may be also rising with you. They still remember that. And there were a lot of things that I did as Captain Siler and Major Siler that now I look back and I regret, and I'm like, man, that was dumb. I didn't have that wisdom and that foresight to realize that, I've got my entire life in front of me, and every decision I make today makes an impact on me 15 years from now. What's very true within the civilian community, and I have found that at Vigilant, our niche, our market is smaller than you think, and the sum total of the good things that we do, and now fortunately very good things that we do, they help us out. But I didn't have that longitudinal perspective very early in my career, and I sure wish I had that.
Yeah, going back to your take on the military people following orders, we're a volunteer military force. So pretty much everyone that volunteers has the same mindset, or, they're all wanting to be there and they're working towards the same goal, where you might not have that in your civilian career, especially if you're managing several departments like I've had in the past, where I may have a facilities team that, yeah, they all know we got to keep the facility running. And now we got a custodial team working under me also, and they want to keep everything clean. And I've got the parking team that does the parking. And so I have to change my leadership styles for each one of those groups. And then even more for each one of the people in those groups, situational leadership.
And to build on that, one of the challenges that I have, and fortunately I got a great team that helps me with it, is that you need to align. Everybody has different goals themselves, and how do you align where they want to go to what you do? So how do I get somebody in finance who really just wants to to move along or get into an advanced education program, and how do I get that aligned to keeping that doctor supplied in an African country? And And that alignment is really kind of an executive task. And that's what I see at the executive level, and actually on the Army side, like at that colonel and general officer level. How do you get separate units all synchronized so that, what that mess kit repair battalion is doing really is synchronized with what the armor maneuver battalion is doing? And so, yeah, that, kind of builds exactly on what you said.
Yeah, and I think if you take your goals as a company and you drill them down to the departments and then to individuals, like you said, if someone's trying to get an advanced degree, as long as it's related to what they're doing, that's going to help the company, and you can help them, one, build their goal, and then they're going to help support the company goals and going up the chain from there. So
to steal from Simon Sinek, it's the why. Give them the why. Tell them where their part of that is.
Definitely. Sean, we're running short on time here, so let's get to your leadership tip. If you have one tip for a new leader, what would it be?
Plans are useless. Planning is everything. And so for us, both in the military and on the civilian side, we spend a lot of time working on planning. And our perspective, we borrow from the SOF community with PACE planning: primary, alternate, contingency, emergency. And, primary is a way to do it, or the way that you want to do it. Alternate is another way in perfect circumstances for you to get your goal accomplished. Contingency is yet another way to do it in less than perfect circumstances. And emergency is any port in a storm. For us, everything that we look at, every resource, every path, every opportunity, we will do PACE planning. And rather than try to figure out how we're going to do it, we figure how we're going to do it at least 4 different ways. But then we also will look at branches and sequels. And essentially, if we're going down this path and then this happens, we have a couple of choices: keep doing what we're doing, or we can change what we're doing and go a different direction. That process will create a plan for you and a bunch of options. That plan will fall apart, I guarantee it. And if you put yourself in that position where that's the only thing you've got, and this is where business plans are useless, the planning to get to that business plan is priceless. That is exactly what gives you the knowledge, and the branches and sequels give you all the options to go left or right wherever you meet challenges. But if you don't go through that process with the intent of having multiple ways to get there, then you're going to fail. And that's where I have failed as an entrepreneur with multiple companies before I got to Vigilant. And that process that now I've brought back from my SOF days, and my entire team does every day throughout what we do at Vigilant, that's enabled our success.
100%. So if listeners wanted to reach out to Vigilant or yourself, how would they do that?
So you can go to vigilant.com, and Vigilant is spelled with all I's. So VIGILINT. So think international or intelligence and such. But vigilant.com will tell you a little bit about what we do kind of on the commercial side. Soon we'll have some of the government stuff that we do featured on the website. Or you can reach out to me directly at Siler, for Sean Siler, Siler, at vigilant.com. And would be happy to help anybody out, and especially veterans or entrepreneurs or business folks that are looking for a little bit of mentorship. And I will tell you all the ways that I have failed over the years, and that's exactly how I've gotten to where I'm at, because I failed a lot.
Awesome. We'll put all those links in the show notes below. Thanks for coming on the show today, Dr. Siler.
Awesome. Thanks for the opportunity, and good luck to all of you out there, and appreciate it very much. Thank you.
There are thousands of leadership and management podcasts to choose from. We're glad you chose the Leadership Loading Podcast, a Go Heroes production. If you'd like to support Go Heroes Inc., visit www.goheroes.org. And with that, it's time to wrap up today's show. Thank you so much for listening. We sincerely hope you liked it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with your family and friends. Let's all grow together. Thanks for listening to the Leadership Loading Podcast. Leadership inspired.